Assalamu alaikum. I am Dr. Aisha Bashiruddin, an educationist, researcher, and writer. This is the 7th video of the presentation series based on my research on Muslim women in America. In the last 3 presentation videos, I presented theme 1 by focusing on 3 generations of women, that is, baby boomers, Generation X, and Generation Y. In this video, I will look into the narratives of Generation Z, which is women between the ages of 8 to 23. So stay tuned. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and if you like my videos, press the bell icon. Also, share these videos with your family and friends. All these young women were born in America. The analysis of the data gathered from Generation Z reveals 2 sub-themes. The first is religion as a defining element for the family, and the second is learning about Islam from outside sources, such as Islamic schools, Sunday schools, and media. Religion as a defining element for the family is the first theme. Most of the narratives of the women in Generation Z provide evidence that religion has been a defining element for the family. The narratives point out that religion has provided unity and harmony in the family in form of religious beliefs and practices. Salma, who belonged to a family from Pakistan, states that religion was a very important element for her family. According to her, she was a part of a family who had focus on religious, cultural, and ethnic values. Adiba, from a Pakistani family, points out that, and I quote, "My family was a practicing Muslim family and we prayed 5 times a day and observed fasting during the month of Ramadan." Unquote. Ifat was born in a Palestinian family. She states, and I quote, "My family has been religious. They were all conscious of the deen. We would pray together, fast together. Eid and Ramadan were big things for us, which we would celebrate with great love." Unquote. She recollects that her parents' relationship with Allah and their taqwa was what was predominant, and that she grew up in that environment. However, she states that she struggled with her identity as a Muslim because she was the only Muslim in the school, elementary, middle, and high school. It was not until college when other Muslims were there. She said that she stood fast all this time and kept her Muslim identity because she was close to Allah and was focused on pleasing Him and was least bothered about what others thought of her. Tayyiba, who belongs to a family from Palestine, grew up in a large family of 4 siblings and parents and grandparents around her. Her elder sister helped her to develop her Muslim identity. Both her parents taught her and her siblings the Islamic value, the Quran, short surahs, and how to pray. Razia, whose parents were from Africa, said, and I quote, "I was very confident as I was growing up as a Muslim woman in America. My parents taught me from the very beginning that Islam is not only a religion, it is a way of life, and it is of utmost importance to be a good Muslim. Unquote. Many of the narratives show that in developing their Muslim identity, the positive mother daughter relationship proved to be of great importance. For example, Fidya, who was born in an African family, talked about her parents who were very caring and taught her to be so. When she was very young, her parents started teaching her names of Allah. She started memorizing them. She had seen her parents praying. Her mother had a strong influence on her. She would teach her about Islam. She started wearing hijab when she was 12 years old. She was well prepared by her mother how to respond to people who may ridicule her or who may distance themselves from her. She learned that she must please Allah and she should not care about other things. Similarly, Adiba, who was from a Pakistani family, states that in her household no one gave importance to wearing of hijab. When she wanted to wear hijab at the age of 13, her mother fully supported her. Likewise, Sofia from Cuba said that when she was young, she had seen her parents pray and she would just stand next to them and do all the movements. As she grew older, her mother started teaching her the namaz. Adila, whose parents belonged to Trinidad, stated, "My mother was very helpful in forming my identity as a Muslim woman in my initial years. She was educated in a madrasa in Trinidad and knew about Islam and would teach us about Islam." Unquote. Another very significant element of being a Muslim was that all these women at a very early age came to know about values, ethics that were embedded in the teachings of Islam. For example, Salma, who was born in a Pakistani family, states that she was taught about family values which were inculcated from the very beginning by her parents, such as respecting the elders, caring for each other, eating halal food, and dressing up modestly. Likewise, Fidya, who belongs to an African family, said, and I quote, "As a child, I was taught to eat halal food, dress up modestly, and taught how to behave as a Muslim." Unquote. Her mother particularly taught her to be kind and courteous to everyone around her. She taught her that Quran on several occasions emphasizes the fact that Allah loves those who are kind to their fellow human beings. She herself was very kind to everyone and tried to help anyone who needed her help. Learning about Islam from outside sources. Many of the narratives illustrate that one of the most powerful means of learning about Islam has been through various opportunities outside the family and homes. According to the narratives, the religious communities and religious institutions have provided valuable social support to these young women in forming their Muslim identity outside their families. In some cases, it is noted that many of the parents were too busy in their jobs or household chores that they were not able to provide religious education to their children at home and decided to get support from the religious communities and institutions. There are several examples in the narratives which point to the importance of attending Sunday school in the masjid. Yenet, whose parents were from Ghana, had a lot of uncertainties regarding her identity. She would get confused about herself. She often asked her mother, "Who am I?" Both her parents worked and she was most of the time in the school or in the daycare centers. She had no exposure to her religion until her mom's friend suggested to her mom to take her to the masjid on Sundays. So her mother enrolled her in the Sunday school in the masjid, where she started to learn about Islam and its practices. She also learned to read the Quran. Ifat, who was born in a Palestinian family, started going to Sunday school when she was 4 years old. She reminisces, and I quote, "Sunday school played a crucial role in my understanding about Islam and the reading of Quran." Unquote. Every summer she would also go back to Palestine to visit her grandparents, and there she learned Arabic and Quran from a teacher. This also helped her in understanding the Quran and its teachings. Sofia from Cuba went to Sunday school every week and started learning about Islam, Quran, and practices of Islam along with other peers. She learned about the Muslim traditions and teachings which she tried to practice. She had the desire to recite the Quran and she started a course online to do so. She practiced at home and then sometimes she would recite some verses from the Holy Quran in her class in Sunday school. Fidya, who was born in an African family, also states that her mother would take her to the masjid to attend Sunday school, where she learned the Quran and teachings of Islam. She narrates, and I quote, "I grew fond of Sunday school, where I had compassionate teachers, supportive friends, and motivational environment, which contributed to my understanding of Islam and its practices." Later, she was taught Quran with translation by a lady from the masjid. There are several narratives that show that attending Islamic school also provided these young women an awareness about Islam as a way of life. One of the examples of this is what Razia, who belonged to an African family, states about her experience of Islamic school. She states, and I quote, "In Islamic school, I found an environment in which Islam was predominant. I learned the Quran and the teachings of Islam and how to behave as a Muslim woman and how to develop my identity." Unquote. Adila, whose family was from Trinidad, said that her mother was busy with the household chores, so she admitted all of them to an Islamic school. In Islamic school, they further learned about Islam. They came to read and understand Quran and Hadith. Other narratives show that many of these women learned Quran from other sources. For example, Salma from a Pakistani family states that she joined the Quran class in Islamic Center where she was able to read the Quran with English translation. Adiba, also from a Pakistani family, narrates that she joined a youth group in her masjid, which was instrumental in her identity construction as a Muslim woman. She states, and I quote, "By being part of the youth group was very beneficial because I could recognize and develop my identity as a Muslim woman." Many of the narratives reveal the influence of media in learning and understanding Islam. One of the examples is that of Adila, whose family belonged to Trinidad. She stated that all of her family on weekends watched Islamic programs and movies. Then they discussed some of the concepts that came up and tried to find explanations. Furthermore, she said that she started learning more about her religion and identity by looking up answers on the websites and blogs in which her mother helped her. Razia, who comes from an African family, said that her mother would play an audio of some surahs on her phone and she would listen to them over and over again to memorize them. Later, along with her mother, she would listen to the Quran on her cell phone and the translation in English. She narrates, and I quote, "Sometimes we would watch Islamic movies." Jeanette, whose parents come from Ghana, also found it interesting to watch Islamic videos on YouTube. Her mother looked for these videos and then she and her siblings would watch them. Some of the narratives show that these young women were guided by their teachers to watch lectures on Islamic websites. Janet's teacher in the masjid directed her to a website where she could listen, read, and understand Quran. She used that site whenever she had the time. Thank you for joining. See you next week, that is February 25th, 2023. Until next week, goodbye and Allah Hafiz.